Have you ever experienced something so extraordinary, so perfectly timed that it defies all logical explanation? Moments where lives intersect in ways that seem impossible, where challenges are overcome by the most unlikely solutions. Then you have felt the hand of God at work. I'm Brent, and this is You Can't Make This Up, a podcast dedicated to showcasing the amazing things God is doing in the lives of ordinary people. We'll hear stories of divine connections, miraculous interventions, and blessings that leave you speechless. Join us as we celebrate faith, hope, and the power of God who moves in mysterious, wonderful ways. Well, this is episode 2. This is the one about the wood chipper. Now, I've told this story probably a couple of dozen times over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. But this is a story that I want to share here on this podcast because I think it's important that everyone hears it. It's a story about how God provides even when we don't know or see it coming. We hadn't even asked for it. But it's a story that began at the children's home in Baxley, Georgia. I'm gonna give you a little backstory leading up to the events of the wood chipper. So in the summer of 2018, Ox took our youth to Baxley, to the Georgia Baptist Children's Home, for their Camp Hawkins. And Camp Hawkins lasts for 3 weeks, and it's a camp for special needs kids. And our church youth group was working with week 2, and I was able to go down that Thursday. And when I got there, I met a man named Mike Myers and asked Mike, I said, can you give me a tour around this campus? I'd like to see it. Told him my great aunt and uncle were house parents there, and I'd always had a draw to come see the children's home, but had never made it until that day. So I hopped in the truck with Mike, and he gave me a tour. I think we went to every building on the campus. And as we're going to these different buildings, and he's taking me in the ones that we can go in, and I'm seeing all of this repair that needs to take place. And I asked Mike, I said, do y'all let volunteer groups come in and help you? And Mike explained to me that at one point in time, they had volunteer groups coming in every week, assisting with different types of needs there around the campus. And I asked him what happened. He said, well, they all got old. And that's the facts. You know, church groups would come together and they'd set out to go to the children's home to do whatever. But those people got older and they got to a point where they weren't physically able to go anymore. But what they didn't do was invest in the younger generation to pick up the torch when they could no longer tote it. So the children's home went a period of time without consistent volunteers coming in. So I spoke with Ox. I said, we really need to figure out how we can come to the children's home and help. I said, that's pretty important. I said, they got a lot to do around here, and it really fits into our wheelhouse of missions. So we started planning. 2018 rolled on through, and then 2019 come in, and we start talking to the guys down at the children's home about how could we come in and help? What could we do? We told them what our skill set was, what we were capable of doing. We shared with them some of the other projects that we had worked on. And so they set up a time for us. We came in December of 2019. We took our tool trailer down, and we was expecting to be able to do some painting or some plumbing repair or some light building maintenance, just whatever. That's what we thought we were going to be doing. But God had completely other plans for us. When we got there, they told us what we was going to be doing, and they took us down to their barn, and we hooked a 16-foot trailer to the back of our church bus. And if you've never been to the children's home, let me kind of paint the picture for you. The portion of it that they manage is about 150 acres, give or take some. The grass is well mowed. I mean, the front side of campus is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. If you haven't been, I really hope that you can get to go one day. But there's only 2 men that take care of that. And there's oak trees that are just huge. They've got to be 150 years old or older. I don't really know how old they are. I just know they're huge. And they had just come through and trimmed all of those oak trees, and the limbs were laying on the ground under them. They said they could really use some help getting those limbs picked up and taken to the pile. Well, the campus, every road on campus is paved. So we started at the far side of campus, farthest away from the limb pile, and began picking up limbs. And by day number 2 rolled around, we're still picking up limbs, and we're still piling them in the same pile. But we've never left sight of the pile. Everywhere we go, we can see this pile of limbs. And Ox is walking beside me, and I looked at him and said, "Ox, sure would be nice if we had a wood chipper." He said, "Yeah, that would be good." So we began having us a candid conversation about the wood chipper and how we would use it, and this, that, and other. And it's like, yeah, we could just take these limbs, run through the chipper, and just shoot these chips out on the ground right under these trees, and it'll put mulch around them. The nutrients go back in. It just, cycle of nature. And that's what kind of what our talks was just revolving around. And then our talks transpired into, well, I wonder how much one cost. So later that night, or maybe the next day, we start looking up to see how much a wood chipper would cost, and they range anywhere from $6,000 to however much you want to pay. So it's like, Ox, I don't know. Buying a wood chipper might be outside of our reach. He said, well, you never know. He said, something might has happened where we can get us one. So we get back home, and that Monday morning, I couldn't shake the thought of, man, we need a wood chipper. And I remembered that one of my boss men had purchased one probably a decade ago. And I said, I wonder if he still got it. So I called him up, and he and I had us a little small conversation, just catching up on life and where we were and how things were going with our families. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you still got that wood chipper that you bought, a couple years ago? He said, yeah, I got it. Why? I said, well, we were down at the children's home, told him what we were doing. I said, we could really use one. I said, we're wanting to buy one. I said, you wouldn't be interested in selling yours, would you? He said, well, I really hadn't thought about selling it. He said, but if you need it for the children's home, you can have it. Well, I wasn't expecting that. See, God had already planned it all out. He had already planned for us to pick up limbs. He'd already planned for this former boss of mine to give us a wood chipper. You never know exactly what God has in store until it starts unfolding in front of you. That's why it is so very important to keep your eyes open to what's happening around you. Allow your ears to become sensitive to what God is trying to do around you. When you think of Philippians 4:19, and that verse says, my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. That's exactly the truth. There's so much truth wrapped up in that one little short verse. You think about the wood chipper. Did we, was that a want of ours? Yeah, I would say it was a want of ours at that moment in time. But that wood chipper has become so much more. It has become a ministry tool where we can go to different property owners who need limbs disposed of, and just grind them up, shoot those chips off into a pile, or shoot them off into the woods, and it's quick and easy. We didn't know that was coming, but because of our faithfulness in serving the Lord, giving Him all the glory for everything that was occurring, that's why I firmly believe He provided that wood chipper. I called Ox that Monday that my boss man said, yeah, you can have it. And he and I kind of have this saying when something amazing happens, says, hey, you got your shoes tied on tight? And say if you don't, it's fitting to blow your socks off. Well, I shared with Ox about the wood chipper, and he reminded me of James 1:17. He said, well, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. He says, coming down from the Father of light, from whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. You got to remember, every good and perfect gift comes from God and God alone. It may have came to us through the hands of a human, but it's only because God had massaged that man's heart and prepared him to give that to us. See, this is just one of many stories that has happened like this. I don't believe Hollywood could ever come close to creating a short film or a movie or anything remotely close to what we experience. It's an everyday thing where we see the hand of God working in the most unusual ways. And the wood chipper, that's just the beginning of these stories. There's so many more to share with you. Until next time. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of You Can't Make This Up as much as I have enjoyed bringing it to you. I pray that it has encouraged you to look for those God moments, as I like to call them. Remember, He is moving even when you don't see Him. If you have a God moment story that you would like to share, I would be thrilled to hear from you. You can contact me by email at brent.redfern@gmail.com or through social media on Facebook. You Can't Make This Up -podcast, or look me up on YouTube. It's the You Can't Make This Up -podcast channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, and until next time, remember that God is good all the time, and you most certainly can't make this up.